Right now is a former NTSB investigator, Alan Diehl. Good morning to you. What do you make of this, and how hard is it going to be to actually investigate this case?
Well, it's going to be complicated. Certainly, Mr. Calhoun knows there are people in Boeing that know whether or not the paperwork trail actually existed. If they didn't do the paperwork, he needs to tell the chairwoman. If the paperwork exists, he needs to find it and turn it over to the NTSB. I agree with him about the video camera footage. The FAA, for example, overwrites our own videos from air traffic control, I think, every 30 days. So that may not be nefarious, but he's got to fess up and tell the NTSB what happened and when.
Alan, just tell it to us straight. When we read these headlines, I think it's very troubling for a lot of Americans, a lot of folks around the world who board these planes. And I think we don't really know or understand, perhaps the way you would or do, whether we should be genuinely concerned that somehow the culture inside Boeing is not of excellence and is genuinely troubled, or is it something else?
Well, certainly the culture needs to be addressed, and that's up to the new CEO, Mr. Calhoun. But keep in mind, when you board an airliner today, you've got one chance in 10 million of dying. Now, try to get those odds from your surgeon. It's not that dangerous, but it needs to be improved. And we need to remember Charlie Wilson's 1950 quote when he was confirmed as Secretary of Defense: "What's good for General Motors is good for the nation." So we're going to have to help him get Boeing back on track. And there are some things that both Mr. Buttigieg could do and the new FAA administrator, Mr. Dixon.
And what are those things?
Well, I think Buttigieg should, because of the threat of whistleblower harassment. We don't know what happened with John Barnett, who committed suicide several days ago. I think Buttigieg should ask the FBI to investigate that, just to make sure we don't have a situation like Ralph Nader faced back in the 60s with the Corvair, and General Motors put undue pressure on him when he exposed the problems. Just so that's a job for the FBI to find out. And certainly Mr. Buttigieg can assure that. And another thing very quickly, Dixon, the FAA administrator, could send a large group of former FAA quality inspectors, maintenance inspectors. You could hire them temporarily to go into the Boeing plants and make sure things are back where they should be. Boeing had a great reputation, and it slipped when they merged with McDonnell Douglas in this competitive world. They're struggling.
Alan, do you think they need different management? Do you look at what's happened under Dave Calhoun and say these problems are persisting, they're continuing, they're getting better, they're getting worse?
Well, there's a lot of inertia to this kind of situation. I think Calhoun is trying to address this. He needs to do more to protect whistleblowers. He certainly needs to find those records and talk with the chairwoman of the NTSB and either fess up. We never had the records. Okay, another example of our failure of quality control, or the records.
Well, that's what I was going to say. If they don't have the records, it's a quality control issue. And then you're reading these reports saying they're using Dove soap and hotel card keys to check the seals and things, between doors and things. I mean, does that make any sense to you whatsoever?
There's a lot of things that need to change, and I'm not sure getting another CEO in right now at Boeing is what they need to do. Well, let's give Mr. Calhoun a chance to fix this, but let's also get the government involved to ensure that this vital company survives and prospers. And there's a number of things, like I said, we all need to do. The government needs to do. As a former bureaucrat myself and a whistleblower, I know you need to make sure people are talking to you, Mr. Calhoun, and you need to make sure you go back to quality control. It's back to basics at Boeing.
What do you make just more broadly about government regulation of the airlines? As you said, the chances of getting of an accident are uniquely low. I'm knocking on in this case, the plastic in front of me. But I ask just because I think there's questions about, whether we have enough folks inside the FAA, what's happening in the towers these days, what kind of regulation or monitors are in place at a place like Boeing at the airlines when they're doing different mechanical work and the like. What do you think of that?
Well, clearly in 1978, when Congress deregulated the airlines, they didn't give the FAA any more resources. So they didn't have the inspectors they needed, and they still don't, in my opinion. I've worked with those guys and gals. They're a great group. There's not enough of them. We also know there's controller shortages. Nobody wants larger bureaucracies, but I think it would be wise to invest in people. And yes, both the NTSB, who I think has just got authorization for 70 new employees, I think that's great. We need to look again at the controller shortage and the FAA inspector shortage. But clearly, Calhoun has got to continue his leadership and clean up his act, or the company's act, because Boeing needs to come back for America's sake. And we can talk about the MAX aircraft, the 737 specifically, some other time. It still needs a few fixes, I can tell you. But
Alan, he wasn't CEO, but he was there for the whole Muhlenberg fiasco. He was on the board. I mean, you don't just date it to when he started. I mean, I don't know. Everybody says the same thing. No, you don't want to switch CEOs in the middle of a. But I don't. What would it take for you to say, okay, yeah, they aren't talking to him. It's not working. The things that need to be done at the top. You know what they say about a fish, where it rots from. I mean, when do you finally say enough is enough? Would you ever say that?
Well, yeah. If things don't improve in the next several months, or
it's been years already. It's already been years. It's been 5 years.
Skip around. He says that he's right, but they better start improving in the next several months, or maybe they do need new leadership there in Boeing.